Hey everybody, it's Harry from Step with Daddy BBQ, your YouTube channel that teaches you how to master barbecue so you can spread barbecue love. I have with me here a Walmart brisket because one of my viewers, CJ, asked me a question. Harry, can you take a inexpensive Walmart brisket and apply some black belt tricks and turn it over into a competition grade brisket? So in this episode, I'm going to show you guys some tips and tricks on how to take a regular Walmart brisket and reach the highest pinnacle of competition perfection with something that you can get from Walmart. For the injection, I'm going to use a combination of Cosmos injection. This is the reserve blend, as well as Tim Dickey's deep beef injection. This is from Smoky Okies, and this is from Cosmos injection. We're going to use a reserve blend and a deep beef. I'm going to combine the two injections into about 10 ounces of water. 1 heaping tablespoon and 2 tablespoons of that. So we have 3 tablespoons of product into about 10 ounces of water. The injection is ready, and you can see there's a little bit of foam. If you let it sit for a little while, the foam will subside. I like to refrigerate this so this stays cool, so when I inject the injection in liquid into the brisket, it's pretty cold, and I'll let the brisket kind of sit overnight with the rub on. I'm going to talk you guys through now how to trim the brisket. So first thing when you buy a brisket is you got to cut it open and smell it. So make sure that it hasn't gone bad. If you smell of like rotten eggs, that means the brisket's gone bad. Just take it back to the store. This is a Walmart brisket. It's let's see here. It's about $51 and it's about $303.46 a pound. And this is about 15 pounds, which is a good size. You can tell from it the marbling is not that great, but that's kind of what a low-end brisket kind of looks like. We're going to show you guys how we're going to do a competition trim on it, and we're going to apply some black belt tricks like putting a commercial injection in it, and then creating a award-winning rub with a smear. We're going to get the brisket to the best possible potential for a kind of a lower quality brisket here. Make sure you throw away the purge. Never wash your brisket in the sink because you're going to contaminate your kitchen that way. Towel dry the brisket like this. There are actually several grades of beef in America in a grading system. The 3 that you hear in the marketplace are prime, choice, and select. But below that, you have other grades such as standard and commercial, and below that you have canner, cutter, and utility. So there are approximately 8 grades of beef in America, and you typically see the 3 grades in the marketplace, prime, choice, and select, but there are other grades below that. It's hard to tell for me to tell looking at this brisket what grade it is. When you buy a brisket for home cooking or competition cooking, you're looking for 4 different characteristics. One is called size. Size is the weight. Second is the symmetry, so you want a brisket to kind of have a nice shape. This one is a pretty good shape. The brisket is comprised of 2 muscles, the pectoralis major and minor, and it sits on the breast of a cow. So this is the left brisket and there's a right brisket. And there's a saying that sometimes the left brisket is more tender than the right. That's what my friends in Texas always say. Whether it's true, I have no idea. The second thing you also look for is called marbling and striation. So marbling is basically the fat here, right? So you can see this one doesn't look too bad here, but on here not so good, right? So this is marbling. So when the marbling is going into the grain, you can see striations. So on this brisket here, there are actually no striations. So you can see here, I don't see any fat poking through the meat. So it's really fatless, pretty lean. I'm going to show you guys some tricks and tips on how to get the most out of a less expensive Walmart brisket. But first thing we're going to do is show you guys how to trim it. We're going to trim it competition style. We're going to basically take off the extra fat here, and I'm going to remove the eye of fat. Remove all of the fat between the point and the flat so that the point muscle, which is the piece on this side here is completely exposed, and the point is where the burn ends come from. So when you go to Texas and you order brisket, and the meat cutter asks you, hey, do you want fatty or lean? The fatty is the point muscle. If they ask you for, you want the lean is from the flat muscle, which comes from this part here. So I'm gonna try to trim off the fat between the two layers here, so I can isolate the point muscle for the fatty. And this is the part of the brisket where those juicy morsels of burn ends come from, which is basically a point muscle that's cooked until all the fat has been rendered, and it's super, super yummy. When you trim a brisket, it's important to trim visually and also to trim by the feel. So you can see here, right, there is a tendon or ligament right here, running here. So this is really not good eating, and I advise you to trim it off before you cook it. That way your guests are not gonna have this ligament here. So you can see it runs pretty deep, runs all the way through the meat. I'm gonna try to trim it off, get under the ligament here. So it's pretty deep. So I'm gonna have to remove a pretty big piece here to get the ligament off, because that's not very good eating. You want it trimmed off. So, and you can see it looks like that here. Right here. Okay, so make sure that you trim these bits off. I can still see a bit of it here. See that? So I'm gonna continue to trim it until I get all of it. So, there you have it. Okay, and I'm gonna round this up a little bit like competition style, so I don't need this little triangular piece. Trim it off. Say I have to make some brisket curry or brisket sausage or kind of like a stew. Same here in the corner. Just trim off this corner here, the edge. And then what I like to try to do is I like to try to trim the edges so that the edge is aerodynamically smooth. There's no bumpiness on it. This is an optional step, but I find that it has a nice smoke ring all the way to the edge that way. And then when, more importantly, when the brisket sits on the pit and the air flows around it, there's no turbulence, so the air smoke flows a little bit smoother over the meat. So a lot of detail like this, you don't have to do it, but in a competition, these are some of the extra steps that I do to make sure that the brisket has an aerodynamic shape in the pit itself. And we also make sure that we remove the silver skin, like so. Get all the fascia. So the skin beneath is the fascia, which is silver skin. It's good to remove all the silver skin so that the rub will have a chance to stick onto the meat. And we're gonna inject it, and then we're gonna rub it. You'll let it sit overnight and let it get flavorful, and then smoke it. I'm gonna show you guys a trick later on how you can take an inexpensive cut of brisket, still get a very, very tender result, and that detail will be coming up shortly. We're getting ready to inject the brisket. What you need is one of these injectors. If you look in my YouTube video description, there's a YouTube link to go to my Amazon store to purchase one of these. I like this one because this one works really well. The first thing you want to do is you want to get some beef Vaseline on it. So you want to kind of lubricate the plunger. Make sure that the plunger is nicely oiled up so that it won't leak. I'm going to get some help here. I have Sam. Sam's going to give me a hand here, right, Sam? Yeah, right, yeah. I'm going to show you guys how to inject here. So it's not that hard. I want to introduce people to the easy task of injecting a brisket. So what you do is you just put the syringe in here. You fill up the plunger with some liquid, and then you hold the barrel. What you want to do is you want to insert it with the grain. So the grain's kind of running this way. You can see here. The grain for the point runs a different direction. So when you slice a brisket, it's important to always slice 90 degrees against the grain. So if I'm slicing a brisket, later on when I slice the flat, I'm going to slice it this way. So this way runs 90 degrees to the grain. Over here, because the grains are running this way, I have to slice it this way. All right, so when you guys cut briskets later on, when it's done, just be mindful, you want to cut it 90 degrees to the grain. In order to inject, it's very simple. You hold the plunger. Because the brisket is kind of thin, if you go straight down like that, there is a good likelihood you puncture the fat cap. And you don't want to do that. So it's better if you go into a 30-degree angle. The fat cap is kind of like a bathtub. In this case, I left the fat on. Sometimes what I do is I trim the fat cap down to about like half an inch or a quarter inch, but that's kind of optional. I tend to cut away the fat anyway later on before I serve. So if you're serving the brisket with the fat on, this one is a little bit too thick. This one is about right here. about a 1/2 inch right here. So that's about the thickness of the fat cap that you want if you are going to be serving the fat with the brisket. So all you need to do is hold the barrel, stick it in about 30 degrees like so. Gently push the plunger down. You see it swell. Okay, it's oozing up. Pull it out a little bit. Inject some more. See it swell. Slowly push the plunger. And once it starts to leak, you stop. Pull it out a little bit more. And you fill up the microfibrils of protein with the injection. And if it's full, you stop, put your finger over it. Fill it up again. Move over 1 inch. And repeat the process. And you see it swell. Pull it out a little bit. Take your time. See it swell. Pull it out a little bit. And get as much liquid as you can. We have about 10 ounces, which Sam's gonna inject over all the brisket here.
All right.
Okay. So you're doing a 1 inch grid all over the surface of the brisket, shooting it at about 30-degree angle. This is the only activity in cooking brisket that you cannot overdo. You can very easily overcook, over trim, over rub, over smoke, over salt. But with regards to injection is known as a fail-safe process, because whatever excess injection you don't end up using, the injection is going to ooze out during the cooking process. So don't worry about overdoing this process. Everything else, you have to be very, very careful. But on injection, just shoot up your brisket with as much liquid as you can possibly take. Ooh. Yeah, that's okay. Take your time. After we apply the injection, we're going to put the rub on. I'm going to talk you guys through the process. We're going to use a couple of smears on the meat first to get the meat a little bit more tacky. We're going to apply some ground white pepper, some coarse black pepper, and then my Slap Your Daddy First Place USA Moolah beef rub. So I'm going to have Sam help me out here. I'm going to apply some of the seasoning here. This is a Maggi seasoning you can find in most grocery stores. I'm going to put about maybe 1 tablespoon and we're gonna gently rub it on. Yeah, gently, not so hard because you have a lot of injection liquid already. So just gently, like a baby's bottom, just give it a massage. Right? Okay. Massage. So the idea is that when you apply the smear allows the rub to stick better, so it's tacky. And try to get on the other side also. Lift this up here. So just lift this side. Nice rub. Alright, let's go. White pepper next. Okay, you don't have to rub this time. This one we're gonna change the motion. You're gonna pat it down, right? So you're gonna pat it down. So just gently pat it like a baby's bottom. So that we never rub a rub. We always pat a rub down. Nice layer of white pepper first. Now a nice layer of black pepper, following it. This is the moolah beef rub. You pat it down gently. Okay, so we never rub a rub, we always pat a rub down because when you rub a rub, it makes it uneven. Okay, flip it over. Alright, now we apply the rub. Nice, even, medium coat of my Slap Your Daddy rub. It's got a lot of other ingredients in there like shiitake mushrooms. It's got powdered Worcestershire, citric acid, on top of all the other products like maple sugar, lots and lots of, spices and seasonings. Gently pat it down. And ideally, we let it sit overnight. I like to leave my rub on about probably 4 to 8 hours and let the injection sit overnight. This is good. I'm probably going to have to let it sit overnight because this is not a very tasty or marble brisket. Since it's from Walmart, not so high quality, but it's all good. It doesn't really matter what quality this is. If you know what you're doing, you should be able to get a pretty decent result. Okay, cool. So all we need to do now is cover it and then put it in the refrigerator and let it rest overnight. Refrigerator door closing. Eight hours later. We're ready to put the brisket in the pit now. I've chosen the Weber Smokey Mountain 22. As I've taught you guys many times, we're gonna put 2 wooden blocks at the bottom so we can prop the brisket up so that it will drain, so that the bark is gonna be perfect. We're gonna run it around 275 degrees with some apple or hickory wood, your choice. So, brisket on, prop it over. And you notice how the dome shape allows it to drain. You get another block of wood under that part. So, okay. And we'll check it back after a few hours. My brisket has fully crusted and looks good. I can do a scratch test, and if the wrap doesn't come off, I'm going to put a 10 ounces of beef broth here. Slowly rehydrate the brisket, and you can see as I put the liquid, it kind of absorbs. See that? So rehydrating the brisket is extremely important. This is one of the competition tricks we use. Make sure that you rehydrate the brisket slowly. And you notice I made a little foil boat at the bottom to kind of catch the drippings. So if you put your mop now, or your liquid now, and the rub falls off, you made a mistake of not waiting until the crust sets. So all that thousands of new flavor compounds from the Maillard reaction will be lost. So this is a very important step. You want to make sure that you take your time, apply the mop, but don't let the mop basically fall out. Just make sure that you keep it within the confines of the foil boat here. Alright, now to wrap, we're going to do a 3-sided baby wrap. So with 2 layers of foil, holding it over. So I'm going to roll the 3 sides. You want to squeeze all the air out. Get the foil as close as you can. And I'm sure you guys have like our trick on how to get the BTU in the oven set right, so that we can get it to be as tender as we possibly can, given this is a lower grade brisket. We're ready to put the wrapped brisket in the oven now. Because BTU is BTU is BTU, you don't really have to run your pit at this point in time to save fuel and also to kind of make it easier on yourself. I have set it to the magic temperature of 205. So this is a trick if you have a particularly kind of tough brisket, or it doesn't have a lot of marbling because it's the lower grade. Here's a tip: you set your BTU to 205, and then you put it in. And you want to cook it until it's probe tender, as long as it takes. Don't worry about the time, just put it away at 205 and just keep checking until it's probe tender by using a bamboo skewer. Here's the brisket all sliced up. It's been about, I would say, maybe it was a 16 to 18 hour cook. We took about 8 hours for the crust to set, and it was put into a 205-degree oven for probably another 8 to 10 hours. So it's a long cook, and this is my tip to kind of get the best result from a lower grade brisket. The smoke ring is pretty decent here. You can see the smoke ring on the point, also pretty good. So now is the time of reckoning. We'll do a taste test and see if this is anywhere close to a regular competition grade brisket cooked the competition style. Looks really good. You can take a look at it here. And a nice smoke ring. Let's do a pull test here. It's a little bit overdone, but that's okay. For home eating, it's good. Flavor is good. A nice amount of smokiness. The tenderness is a little bit over tender, but for home eating, it's fine. The flavor is of the meat is not as juicy and kind of moist as a higher quality brisket, but this is a probably select or below, and from Walmart. What's my conclusion after cooking and tasting this Walmart brisket is that on the overall appearance, this is competition appearance. In terms of the taste and tenderness, I would say that if a competition brisket was a 10, this one I would rate the flat kind of maybe like a 7 out of 10. So maybe 70% of a competition brisket. On the point itself, the point was very good, very juicy, very tender, beautiful smoke ring. On the point, I would rate it more like maybe an 8. So 7 out of 10 on a flat, 8 out of 10 on a point, assuming that 10 is the typical result you get from a competition brisket. So if I average it out, my conclusion would be that a Walmart brisket, even cooked under the best optimum competition condition, including a couple of hacks like cooking it at 250 degrees for a long period of time, so it's a total 16-hour cook, to get maximum amount of flavor and tenderness from the brisket, I could only achieve about maybe 75% of what I could typically do on a prime Angus or a Wagyu or a prime brisket. So the difference in price between a Walmart brisket and that of a prime or a choice it's probably about, I want to say, 50 to 70 cents a pound. So if my math is right, that would set you back another maybe $8 to maybe $15 more money for a choice or Angus brisket compared to Walmart. If you're going to be spending about 12 to 14 hours of your life cooking a brisket, I would say go ahead and spend the extra $8 or $8 to $15 to kind of get a better quality brisket to start with, because you're going to invest so much time. You really want to get the best possible result at the end. So thanks to Bunny for calling me out to asking me to do this little video. Hope you guys found it useful. If you guys like this kind of videos where I do viewer requests, let me know in the comments below. If you guys like or did not like this video, also post in the comments below. I'll be happy to also answer any questions that you have. So until the next video, we will see ya. Please like, subscribe, and share. Now that I tasted the brisket, and now it's time for Mr. Beans to try some. You want to try some brisket, Beans? Mr. Beans has been out of commission for about a week because he actually got mauled pretty badly by a coyote. We were having some friends over, and then he snuck out at night, and we heard a yelp, and he ran back to the house, and he had a huge tear on the back of his neck here. I'll show you guys the scar here. So you can see a huge scar on his neck here. So maybe about 4 inches worth of surgical work had to be done on him. We took him to the vet. Luckily, no vital organs were damaged, and he also got a cut underneath his neck here. You see here his neck here. So he got cut, mauled underneath the neck. Also got mauled on top. So he's a really small dog, and obviously not a good idea to go up against a coyote. We live in the hills in Los Angeles, and there are animals all over, and the coyotes go out and hunt for rabbits. So lucky for Beans, he didn't meet his demise that night, right, Beans? You're so lucky. The vet fixed him up. It was a huge price tag, but he's a sweetie, so we want to make sure that he's okay. And he's back in action today. He missed a couple of my shoots and didn't get a chance to eat the food because he was under the weather. I guess when you have that kind of a work done on you, it hurts really badly. He was kind of out of sorts, but he seems to be ready to be my tasting dog again. Right, Beans? Ready tasting dog? Okay, let me give you a piece of the flat. Sit. All right. Good shot here. It's pretty good, right? Huh? It's a pretty good Walmart brisket. All right. I'll give you a piece of the point next. Ooh, look at this one here. It's pretty good. Hey, sit, Beans, sit. Stay. It's a good piece here. So you can see the scar is pretty deep. So hopefully he will recover 100% and I'll be able to be my chief barbecue tester in my household. Right, Beans? There you go. All right, fist bump.